For more on the story, we can bring in our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Hello to you, Doug.
Hi there, Will.
When we hear about another large overnight attack, more than 400 drones, now 400 isn't even that large because Russia's done so much more and over and over. What do you make of all of these repeated, sustained drone attacks?
Well, it's consistent with the Kremlin's explicit strategy, which is to continue to strike against the infrastructure of Ukraine. Now, the Kremlin has repeatedly insisted that it's only going after military targets, but the evidence on the ground, our own reporting, bears out the facts that time and again this is striking at civilian infrastructure, hitting residential buildings in many cases as well. And by civilian infrastructure, really taking extremely hard aim, pounding away almost virtually night after night at the power stations, the heat and the thermal power stations. It's no secret that one of the Kremlin strategies has been, as winter approaches, and it's been a familiar pattern throughout the war, to take aim at the energy and the power grid in order to literally freeze the Ukrainians into submission and to sap their will. That being, an all but explicit strategy, this winter is different in the fact that, yes, as you correctly point out, there are more of these drones, more of these barrages of drones, these almost more sophisticated drones as well. So in many cases, we're seeing these Iranian-style, Shahed-style drones, often reportedly carrying cluster munitions. There's what we call double terror in these strikes because they're usually a mix, a cocktail of both dozens, if not hundreds of drones, plus dozens of missiles, some of them ballistic missiles thrown into the mix. And what you're often seeing by the double terror is you have the drones themselves striking at targets. And yes, right, the Ukrainians say only military targets, but like I say time and again, it's the power grid, it's the heating grid, it's coal and gas stations, so on and so forth. We've seen recently even nuclear power substations, not the nuclear complexes, but the power substations that power those plants hit in recent weeks. And in those cases, it's all clearly having a massive impact on the ability to keep Ukrainians powered and also to keep the heat on. There's been more and more rolling blackouts and power outages in cities across Ukraine. And the double terror comes in often when firefighters and repair crews show up at these facilities to repair them. They're often struck again. And to add insult to injury, if you're a Ukrainian fighter, on the front lines itself, these drone attacks are involving, when I said more sophisticated drones, they're now drones with infrared cameras. And there are, Russian drones actually going after Ukrainian drone operators. So they're going after the source of the Ukrainians operating their own drones. So there are more of them. They're more sophisticated. They are going after civilian infrastructure. Yes, residential buildings as well. Let's be explicit about it and say what it is. And I will note, obviously, the Ukrainians in turn are also upping their drone game. Since August, they've been taking aim at oil refineries and anything basically that helps facilities that produce the type of energy and oil exports that help Russia to fund its war. So the most recent of those being in the past 48 hours, a reported strike on a key Black Sea port at Novorossiysk, which is a port that an oil exporting port. And that strike by Ukrainian drones has reportedly forced the suspension of those exports. Zelensky's been explicit. His drone strikes are aimed clearly at military targets, not civilian targets. Infrastructure that Russia uses to help fund its war, infrastructure from which Russia launches missiles and drones to attack Ukraine.
Yeah, and all this as the battle for Pokrovsk is at a key stage.
Yeah, Pokrovsk, and not just Pokrovsk, but nearby town of Mirnogorod, are encircled. The strategy is, yes, Russian soldiers in small groups are reported. When I say small, often 1, 2, 3 soldiers stealthily advancing into these cities, taking up positions in the high-rise buildings, especially in Pokrovsk. Look, Pokrovsk, like Bakhmut before it, Avdiivka before it, Bakhmut was the first really big city to fall in the Donbass region back in May 2023, followed by Avdiivka. Pokrovsk is now seen as that new sort of symbolic/strategic prize for Russia. And the problem for Ukraine here is that Russia seems to have unlimited resources. It is far superior in terms of both manpower and munitions power than Ukrainian forces. So the question right now, the dilemma for Ukrainians, as it was in Bakhmut, as it was in Mirnogorod, is what is the balance between fighting on, inflicting greater losses on Russians, far outnumbering you, and perhaps draining the Russian resources for future battles to come, versus human life and sparing human lives, retreating strategically in order to make sure that more Ukrainian soldiers who are already in short supply are not killed, manpower there. Vladimir Zelensky, I'll end with this, has commented in recent days that he is signaling perhaps his intent. He is not opposed, as he said, under a, quote, very difficult situation in Pokrovsk, to pulling back, to retreating strategically, but he's leaving that decision to his commanders on the ground. We see how the thinking is shifting, but it's clearly that Zelensky is cognizant of the fact that Pokrovsk is a real dilemma. He's been blamed in the past for keeping Ukrainian soldiers in a losing battle for too long, risking far too many lives.
All right, Doug. Thank you very much. Douglas Herbert, our international affairs commentator.